So without further ado, I am thrilled to turn over today's session to Jennifer Henslick, who is a buyer with the Anythink Libraries, and she is going to tell us all.
Yay! Okay, thanks, Christine, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. From the introductions, it is easy to see that no matter where we are geographically, figuring out what to do about weeding is pretty universal. That conversation can look a little different depending on what type of library you were working in, so I wanted to start out with a quick poll to get an idea where everyone is coming from. So, what type of library do you work at? Okay, it looks like pretty big public library audience, academic. I really want to know what the others are.
Yeah, this is Christine. If you marked special or other, let us know what library you work for. It's always kind of fun to see.
Right. Ah, click. Okay. Okay, so it looks like we're skewing pretty much towards public, and I also skew public because that's what I know. That's the environment that I've always worked in. Today we are going to talk about some of the basics of weeding and then get some time to practice our new skills. Really, we are just scratching the surface of what weeding is all about. But I hope you find the session to be practical and full of ideas to take back to your library, no matter what type of library it is that you're working at. As a culture, libraries have a lot of residual ideas about weeding and collection maintenance regarding its importance and who does it. The time has come that we really need to reevaluate this. Weeding is often devalued by our profession. It is a task that gets pushed down on the priority list. It is relegated to support staff and volunteers whenever possible, and as a result, our collections are often dated and dirty. I know weeding is uncomfortable for some of us, and there are valid reasons for this. But I want to challenge you to look at weeding as one of the most important things you can do with your library's collection. As we continuously reframe what the library does, and as more and more libraries move to interactive spaces that encourage learning and growth, we have to remember to also reframe how we look at our collections. We are community centers. I know you've never heard that before. A customer who comes into your library may be coming to get a tax form, but they'll stay for the spontaneous game of chess with a staff member using a chess set we printed from a 3D printer. A customer may be coming into the library because it is the best place to get coffee and a comfortable place to sit while she writes out a business plan for her dream business she wants to run just down the street. We should have collections that can help her find reliable current information on business plans. In these cases, there are amazing opportunities to sell library collections. Our collections need to match the enthusiasm that our public has for beautiful, clean buildings and creative activities. They need to be easy to browse and materials that one actually wants to pick up and borrow. Weeding is different for every library in the world. There is a science to it, and we will be going through different ideas of weeding shortly, but there is also an art to it. There is a learning process that each person undertakes while learning the weeding craft, and I don't think that ever ends. Rebecca Vanook, the mighty weeding expert, has penned one of the most freeing epiphanies I've had with weeding. And if you get one thing out of our time together this afternoon, please let it be this. Weeding is a necessary task that must be an integral part of your professional duties, and there are a lot of places to find suggestions on how to do it. But those guidelines aren't going to be able to give you specific titles to weed. There is going to be a lot of evaluation and decision-making on your part in the process. And this is the important part, because no one can tell you what to keep on your shelves unless they work with your patrons and your collections. Those two things have to be there for you to be an expert and knowing what to weed. Never forget this, and never forget that you are the master of this domain. Thor says so. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about why we weed. Why does it matter? Why do we care? So in the main chat box, share some reasons why we would want to weed our collections. Space. Space, space, space. Outdated, yeah. Space, I think, is probably our number one. Honestly, I don't know any libraries that are in growth mode. So we are dealing with libraries that are at or above capacity in their physical collections. Outdated, superseded, nasty books, yeah. Because we are downsizing. Are you downsizing because you're creating more community spaces? Are you moving into a new space? Learning Commons, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, the currency and reliability issue is a big one. If a person comes in looking for a travel book to Ukraine and you hand them a book from 2011, they just left with some pretty serious misinformation that can be dangerous to them. Is once they realize that, they're probably not going to come back. We just blew our chance to be an information provider. Okay, one issue that I haven't seen is time. As we know, our customers on a daily basis are incredibly busy. They have a lot of schedules, they have a lot of things that they have to do, they have a lot of classes that they need to get to. And you hear a lot, I'll just go to Barnes & Noble, or they'll give up really easily because they can't find something quickly. Having a fresh collection on your shelves with a lot of space saves time, and it increases your chance of a successful encounter, and it also saves staff time from having to constantly shift to make return titles fit, which is something we are doing all the time. Okay, another area that I comes up a lot here is floating, which I haven't seen anybody talk about. How many people have floating collections? Yeah, don't get me started on shifting. Boo. Okay, one of the things that I learned the hard way in the library that started floating, when I don't know why we didn't think of it, that we estimated about a third of the collection at any given time was in a moving van going between libraries. So suddenly we had no room, and the crisis weeding had to take place because all those books were on the shelves, which is a terrible way to weed. But floating definitely changed things. Okay. So as you guys have shown, there are many really compelling reasons why weeding should be important in every library. Now let's take a look at how we get started. I see this face a lot when I talk about weeding. There are many ways to tackle weeding, but before you do, there are a few things you need to have in place. Number one, your mission statement and collection development policy. Know what your library's mission statement is. Know what the collection development policy states. These documents set the direction and priorities for your library. Know the level of retention that is expected in your library. For example, my library, Anythink, is very much not an archival library. We are much more People Magazine versus NPR. So we focus on popular titles, recreational reading, etc. And all that to say, we don't need to hold on to stuff. And we are surrounded by libraries that do. We are really lucky in that. Also, community needs. And I say this a lot, no matter what part of the collection I'm talking about. The most important thing you can do after you've got the library's mission statement down and collection development policy ingrained in your head is to focus on your community needs. As you get to know the collections and your community, keep notes. We are much more People Magazine than NPR because that's what our community expects of us, and they have told us that that's what they want. So keep an idea on what is popular, what isn't popular. What do you want the collection to look like? What do your customers want the collection to look like? What are trends that are coming out that you need to be aware of? And are you sharing these observations with fellow staff? The folks that buy the books, are you talking to them? If the collection development staff don't work the front lines, get to know them and let them know what you see. This is so important for us because you are our ears and our eyes to help build us a collection that is relevant, popular, and supports the work that you're doing with the community. Okay, crew. We can't talk about a weeding without talking about crew. Crew is kind of the gold standard. It is a 93-page weeding manual for modern libraries. And a lot of ideas that we've already talked about how and why to weed, why it's important, have come from there. It is a publication of the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, and it is what many consider to be the Bible of weeding resources. The best part, it is free and available online in PDF. So CREW stands for Continuous Review, Evaluation, and Weeding. Thank you, Christine. Lists. The first thing libraries tend to do when they start weeding are, how can I run some lists? How can I get some help in telling me what I need to weed? Collection analysis. Most circulation systems and a growing number of vendors such as Collection HQ, even Ingram is getting into the game now, offer an analysis component. This is where you can identify low circulating items, items that are really old, and even super high circulating items, which can be an indication that material might be worn out and need replacing. This isn't a bad place to start at all. It's actually a really good place to start, and it is the place where you can run a list and have volunteers pull for experienced staff to evaluate. Okay, once you've pulled a list of titles, it isn't an automatic weed scenario for each title. Instead, they must be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and this is the part of what is near and dear to my heart with weeding based on condition, or as I like to call it, this is weeding! The best advice I can give you is to touch the books. Lists are helpful for items not circulating, but are not the only tool you have at your disposal. You should know your collection well enough to weed without a list. Expand your expertise beyond circulation numbers. Touch the books. Unleash your inner book snob, and don't be afraid of the books. It can be invaluable to look at and touch every book in your collection. Weeding increases knowledge of the collection as a whole. You get to see what is worn beyond repair, needs replacing, and also what isn't being used by your community. Open the book. Often there is hidden damage inside you can't see unless you open it. There could be torn pages, stains, smells, graffiti. Jeffrey's sister is a big boob written in crayon. A few months ago, we had a book that somebody wanted us to add back into the collection that said anything sucks on it as soon as we open it up. That's probably not a book that we want to keep in our collection. It may not seem like much to us because really, we're librarians. We have seen a lot of gross things. But truly, who wants to check out a gross book? And just to be evil about this, remember that not all things we can see. Remember the 50 Shades of Grey book that tested positive for herpes? I rest my case. When you are weeding for condition, there are key things to look out for. There are even a number of acronyms that you can choose to use, which are included in your handout, and they include cool words like musty and weedus and my favorite worst. A lot of them have the same types of themes, and so I've compiled some of the basics just to go over. Does the book provide outdated information, which is something we've talked about? If you have a book on heart disease from 2001, that's 15 years old. If you or a loved one has had a heart attack recently, you're not going to want 15-year-old information on how to get through this. You're trying to get healthy, you're trying to heal yourself, you're trying to survive. So you want the most current, up-to-date information to help you do that. Is the book outdated due to its popular interest? Yeah. Spice Girls are probably not going to be very popular these days. Do you have 14 other copies of the same book and they are all on the shelf? I'm looking at you, James Patterson. Your community is essentially saying, meh, we've already read this, we're not interested in reading it anymore, or it really wasn't that very good, so be gone with it. Is it superseded? This is a huge issue in a lot of libraries that I talk to. Legal books, travel books, test books, antique guides, things that come out every year, they come out every year for a reason. That's because their information is very important to be updated, and you don't want to be sending out old, dated information. Is it tattered or dirty? Has it been chewed? Is that really water damage? Could it be poop? You don't know. Dated Dust Jackets, especially in the children's and teen collection. It might be the best book that you've ever read, but if it has a 1980s cover on it, kids today are probably not going to be very interested in it. Nice. Dog training books chewed on by a dog. Yes. Another area is space limitations. Often staff come to me lamenting that they have no space in X, Y, or Z collection, and they are thinking about weeding titles and that haven't circulated in 6 months. This is pretty alarming on a couple of different levels, but really if we go out to the shelves and take a look at what's going on, a little condition weeding usually can knock that space problem out of being an issue. Susan Burkholder from the Colorado State Library shared with me that she has had some smaller libraries actually decline money because they don't have space for new books. So really the struggle is real. Do you recommend using core collection as a reference? I think it is a good jumping off point. I think each community is very different, and you have to keep I think those needs of what your community is asking for and needing is paramount. However, core collection will help you see areas that you might be missing, some areas that are maybe not as big of a need in your community, but that are still a need, and so you make sure you have those bases covered. Good question. Okay, there are two different ways of looking at when to weed. Scheduled and continuous review. Scheduled weeding keeps everyone on task about the responsibility of weeding. In best practices, if you set schedules and monthly goals with the expectation to meet those goals, you can have a beautifully weeded collection pretty quickly. Continuous review may sound like a pain in the butt, but will actually be much easier for everyone than waiting until shelves are packed, i.e. your crisis mode. Especially with floating, crisis mode happens more quickly. If you're in a smaller library, it happens more quickly. If you're a smaller branch in a multi-branch system, it happens really quickly. In a small space, there isn't any place to hide, so to speak. It may seem impossible to weed a little bit every day, but it can be done, and it will feel less overwhelming to staff and less noticeable for customers. Which moves us to the next slide. Barriers to weeding, or what I like to say, what holds us back. So what is the hardest thing for you about weeding? Please share your thoughts in the main chat area. Time, yes. Community backlash. Yeah, community concern is very important, and we've seen in a few places in the last couple of years that it can be a public relations nightmare if we aren't careful. I think this is a good reason why continuous review is so important. We have to hide what we weed. Oh. Finding time. Time is a big thing. Lack of experience. My suggestion for that is just do it. Just start with a small collection and go from there. Really, the art to it is practice, practice, practice. Like we say, to know a genre, you have to read a genre. To know weeding, you have to get out there and weed. And it's scary. Huh. Okay, staff concerns are a big issue on a couple of different levels. Oh no, Julie, you have to have a collection development policy. Ah. Trust is so important when it comes to staff perceptions and weeding. Keeping the lines of communication open, involving staff in a variety of different ways, having staff that aren't responsible for weeding in on the weeding conversation. Let them understand kind of what's happening and why. Value their input, but definitely stand firm. Being called a vulture is a thing that has happened to me. And one of the arguments is always that something is better than nothing, and I get this a lot from frontline staff. They're the ones that are having to deal with somebody that has a report due tomorrow, the library closes in 15 minutes, and they don't have internet access at home. Sadly, this is not usually true. We can be giving a lot of bad information if we're keeping older materials, and that goes back to the whys of weeding we talked about earlier. Massive size of collection. Bobby, one of the things we've done with that is break it down into manageable pieces. Kind of having schedules of when we tackle what, having different people assigned to different areas of the collection, and that has helped some. Okay, now the fun stuff. This is the bulk of what I wanted to do today. It was just giving you an opportunity to practice a little bit of weeding. The next few slides are going to have different titles with different issues, if you will, outlined on the slide. Using some of the criteria we've talked about today and the criteria in your handout, we're going to take a look at each book and share your thoughts in the chat window on should it be weeded, should it be retained, why, should it be replaced? Whatever you're thinking, share with us and we'll have a good discussion. And keep in mind that this isn't a test and there isn't a right answer and there isn't a wrong answer. Okay, for the first one, Boston for Dummies. This one, the copyright is 2007. It has a Capco cover, so if you know Capco, you know it's never going to die. It is a travel guide full of locations, walking tours, attractions, and restaurants. It is full of phone numbers, websites, cost averages for things like taxis, subways, and hotels. What do you do? Ah, you are my people. Yes, yes. Okay, so what if there isn't a new edition? Um, would you be comfortable replacing it with another title travel book on Boston? Perfect. Yes. Okay, next one. DAT, or Dental Admissions Test. This is a copyright of 2007. Commonly, yearly test manuals are published the year before. Like a lot of the 2017 things are coming out now. This is a test to see if you can even get into, if you're worthy enough to get into dental school. There are multiple editions on the shelf, and the 2017 edition will be out in a few months and is on the catalog for customers to put it on hold. What if you don't own a newer copy? Used for teen craft project. Interesting. Yes, they do. Okay. The Tattoo Sourcebook, 2008 copyright. There is a paperback replacement available, and as you can see from the picture, it's in pretty bad shape. It is a popular topic, and it will still get used if you leave it on the shelf. What would you do? Yes, ours gets stolen a lot too, which is why I even hesitated about weeding it. Does the 2008 copyright bother anybody for this topic? Right. Okay, so when I was looking at this book, I actually took the time to open it, even though it looked pretty damaged to me and that it needed to go. Um, you never know. And I found this. So after it made me laugh a lot, but I think this is a great reminder to touch the books, open them up and take a look, because you'll be surprised at how often you are surprised. I have found all kinds of things in books, including the perfect marijuana leaf. Granted, I'm in Colorado, but that was before it was fully legal. Okay, here's our next one. This is a 2013 romance which was added into the collection in 2013. It is in perfect, pristine condition. The spine is not bent. There are no, the spine is not cracked. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's had one circulation, and I am really hesitant to believe that they actually read it when they checked it out. So what would you do? Not enough circulation, absolutely. Patrons do love romances, but here's a tip when working with romances. Romance readers really know their stuff and they're vocal about it. They know what they like, they know the authors that they like, and they don't mess around. So if you have a book like this, which is a Harlequin Presents, which several of them come out in a month, if it's in pristine condition after almost 3 years, your community has spoken. All you have to do is listen. Yeah, it probably is available at other libraries, and it will probably be out of print because Harlequins go out of print really fast. Yes. Okay, our next one. This one is a little bit more tricky. Colorado, it's gold and silver mines, ranches, and pleasure resorts. The spine is broken, which you can see from the picture. There are multiple stains of unknown origin. Pages are ripped throughout, and it smells terrible. In fact, it smells like it's been in gold and silver mines, ranches, and pleasure resorts. But the hitch is that your library is in Colorado. It is not a small library, so you retain historical information on Colorado, and you are nowhere near Denver Public and their amazing local history collection. What do you do? Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely something you would want in a local history collection. Tracy, you raised a good question. For local history type of things, does it matter if it circulates to a lot, or do you just want to have that resource? Another option could be sending it to a bindery. So you'll still have the insides that aren't so great, but the outsides will be put back together, if you will. Digitize. Excellent, excellent suggestion. Um, the subtitle Leadville, Leadville is a pretty popular topic, so to speak. It's kind of a, I don't know, a Wild West type of town. So there are a lot of books that are written about Leadville and its history. So that's a consideration, yeah. Yeah, I like the digitized idea too. Okay, our next one, the American Heritage Children's Dictionary, has a 2016 copyright, so it has not been in the library very long. There are 2 holds on this title, so we have a couple people waiting for it. And it is in great condition. The cover is entertaining, it catches your eye, there are lots of colors. But as you can see on the bottom, there are a couple of exceptions to that great condition. Okay, so why would you keep it? You can see the stains that on the bottom. 2016 and still in reserve, yes. For me, this is firmly in my nope pile. As I like to say, you hope this is water damage when somebody brings me an item that has stains and questionable things on it. But this one is clearly not water damage. There are 2 different stains here. One is blood, and the only reason we know that is because we were told that. Otherwise, we would have to take a guess. And the second one, it could be coffee. Somebody could just have spilled a little coffee on it. It could be chocolate pudding, or it could be poop. You don't know. So yeah, if your reaction is gross and ew, then it is something, and because it's a 2016 copyright, you can definitely replace it. So that way you're taking care of your customers and giving them non-yuck things to check out. It doesn't have a dust cover, it's a hardcover. For a couple of stains for our customers, we wouldn't charge them. We are pretty lenient on that type of stuff. But again, that goes back to your collection development policy, your circulation policies. Every library is different. Yeah. Okay, our last but not least, I wanted to have at least one that wasn't an actual print form. This is a CD dummy by Portishead. The CD case is obviously in many pieces. The CD has multiple scratches. It has circulated twice in the last 3 years. And Hoopla has it, and your library subscribes to Hoopla. What would you do? But it's Portishead. You guys are ruthless. I love it. Yeah, having Hoopla or streaming options kind of changes the game a little bit with collection development. And this is a good one to think about, especially in the future. If we have a streaming copy of something, do we need a hard copy of it? Are we doing service to people that don't have streaming capabilities? Good solution, Danielle. Non-circulation is a good consideration. Yes. Megan, good idea. There's definitely a teachable moment here. If your library checks out hotspots, that's also an opportunity to educate people about the resources that we have available that can help them. Yes, and you can always, ILL is a big consideration, especially the more libraries are in consortiums and doing different resource sharing. Your collection is much bigger than it ever has been in the past. Disk cleaner, that is a good consideration. We do, so we can buff it and it would probably be all right. The circulation levels though are pretty low, and so since we're always looking for space, that would probably be the reason why it would go. That's a good point. A lot of libraries will not loan AV material through interlibrary loan. The library that I worked in previously did not, and we're just starting to get into that a little bit more. In the library I'm at now, we do, on a regular basis, we do a lot of AV materials through interlibrary loan, including VHS. Yes. Okay, so now that we've looked at some titles together, if you have books in front of you, we ask you to bring 3 to 5 books of things that you wanted to think about for weeding. Kind of come up with a few ideas based on what we've talked about on why or why not you would weed them, and share your reasons in the first chat box on the screen. The second chat box is additionally, if you didn't get to bring any books in for this session, or even if you did and you have some really great ideas that you want to share, one of the areas we didn't get to touch on today is best practices. And I would love for you to share some of your own best practices for weeding, and you can share those in the second chat box. And go. Yes, good point. The best practices we will have available on the website so you can refer to them back after the session. Weeding Guides by Dewey Range, yeah. Patron has blacked out all profanity. We had somebody that put post-it notes over all the naked parts in a Shakespeare sonnet book. Consider reading anything with new, current, or modern in the title that is more than 7 years old. Yeah. Anything that says 2.0, it can go. Does anybody have a book that they're looking at that they're kind of on the fence about whether they would read it or not? And kind of want to share that with us, and we can talk about it.
And while we're waiting, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. While we're waiting, Allison had a question about weeding books that are part of a series, if you have a rule of thumb, and that can be directed towards
Series drive me crazy, as I'm sure they do for many of you. Our children's buyer has worked with one of our children's librarians to kind of go through series that we have bits and pieces of, things that are popular now. We're saying yes, we're definitely going to keep collecting these. But if they're older titles that aren't getting circulated, they are making a decision not to have those in our collection anymore. So they are interlibrary loaning them. That is really hard to do on an adult level because there are so many series. But one of the things that I consider is how popular it is. If it's Janet Ivanovich, I'm obviously going to have everything. If it's somebody that I haven't really heard of, or if it's like a C-level author, I'm not going to worry about it so much that we don't have all of them, and we can get them from interlibrary loan.
And Megan had a question about what about a book that's older, has low circ, but it was donated by a member of the community?
That is a good question. If it's a memorial, I tend to think give it some extra consideration, that maybe it can live a little bit longer in our collection. However, if it's something that's taking up a lot of space and we really, it hasn't earned its keep, so to speak, I would go ahead and weed it. I would make sure that the gift plate is taken out of it, so it's not something that in a Friends of the Library sale you're gonna, somebody's gonna open it and see that. That would be horribly emotional. Tricky when an older item. Yes, it is tricky when an older author or title gets discovered and a movie is made. Yes.
And Dana is looking for advice on where to purchase new editions of Taking Sides, nonfiction series, controversial topics. Catherine suggested Amazon, potentially, but if anybody else has any ideas.
Yeah. So are you looking for the updated information on the topic or the specifically Taking Sides? I am finding in nonfiction replacements that a lot of things aren't getting as published as frequently in the opposing viewpoints, controversial topics, and even when they do, they don't check out unless it's CreateSpace, which is a whole other, we could talk for hours upon hours about self-published things, which I tend to, especially for nonfiction, I tend to steer clear of. Unless I can verify that the author actually knows what they're talking about, that they have credentials, and that it's not just copies of a Wikipedia page.
And Allison also makes a good point about self-published titles, and I see that coming up over and over again, where people are asking, libraries to take their self-published books, and that would be something great to make sure that it gets noted in your weeding and collection development policy.
Yes, and whether it's nonfiction or fiction can make a huge difference with self-publishing. A lot of really popular authors for fiction titles, romance, erotica especially, if they want to experiment with something that they're writing about, they will do self-publishing so they have more control over what they're writing, over what they're going to charge for it. And so those are the type of things we generally want to pick up. Again, going back to the nonfiction with the Wikipedia page handout type of things, those you have to be very careful about purchasing. One of the things we do with local authors is ask them to donate a copy. And that way we can see if it's popular in our community. And if it is popular in our community, then we will purchase additional copies for our branches. Oh, there's so many good things to look at here. Borrowing from a partner library is a great resource. So you don't have to keep as many things as you used to. Replace medical books every 1 to 2 years. Very, yeah, medical, legal, even travel. If they're older than a couple of years, then you're giving misinformation. Medical issue books are also an area that's getting harder and harder to replace with current titles. Okay, how many classics do we have to keep? Books are old, yucky, never circulate, but they are classics. I think I would fall back on what your community is asking for. If they are old and gross and yellow, I would replace them. Sometimes they just need a refreshing cover. Some of the publishers are making their covers look more interesting. Yeah, new editions, you don't have to worry about the smell and the gross factor. It is interesting to me to see the difference in years. Some are 3 years, some are 5 years, some are 7 years. There are times when our library we get down to a year, which makes me a little nervous depending on what we're talking about. But it's interesting to see the varying degrees of what libraries are looking at. So Catherine, you have a bad copy of Diana Gabaldon's Voyager. How come you wouldn't replace it with a nicer copy? Berenstain Bear books, yeah, you have to get those in paperback and they don't last very long, do they? Ah, permabound or bound to stay books, they do last a long time and they are easily replaced. I have found in a lot of cases the kids aren't as drawn to them as other titles, but if it's something that's always going to be, sorry, my computer just wigged out, of interest, definitely replace them with that. One suggestion for best practice I've heard is if you are reading a section to do inventory after you've done that section, it adds another layer of cleanup to the catalog, which can be really important. One of the things one of our branches did, it's one of our larger branches, and they had a meeting after hours. They kind of went and had a couple of beers and had a conversation about weeding and what they wanted to see for their branch. And then they picked the different areas that they wanted. Like you got your first pick, this is the area that I really want to work on weeding, and then it went down from there. So you got something that you were really passionate about and really wanted to be working with, and sometimes you got things that you weren't as excited about, but it was a little more fair in the distribution. So it gave them more buy-in to what they were doing and got them excited about it. And also, who doesn't love beer? Okay, so these are a lot of really great ideas, and I thank you for sharing them. All right. So one of my fellow coworkers was talking to me the other day about weeding, and we got into a discussion about what makes sexy sexy. And one of the big words that came up was confidence. Confidence comes from knowledge and experience and cutting out the fear. I hope that there have been a few seeds of weeding confidence planted in you today and your journey has just begun. That said, if you ever need a reminder of your awesomeness, because I'll tell you, there are days where I think I'm Wonder Woman, and my superpower is that I can hold a book and I can tell you if something's wrong with it. And then there are days when even I don't want to read any books. So remember this little slide, print it out if you need to, tape it up on your wall, and remember your awesomenessity. So yeah, I just made up a word and I'm a librarian. So that is it for our time here together. So without further ado, here it is, shamelessly stolen, with permission of course, from Denver Public Library's Weeding Training. Here is your moment of Zen. Thank you. So, and if you do want to hang out, it looks like we've got about 5 minutes. Christine will have a couple of follow-up things, but if you want to hang around and ask some questions, I will be here until 1 o'clock.